one of the things that made social media quite popular in the first phase was because of the anonymity that it kind of gave to the people, that anyone can go up and pose as an online avatar and then post anything that they wanted to say without being afraid or being questioned about. Now I think that has become more a bane because anyone can post anything now and be someone else and post something bad about a brand. How do you think that we should tackle that? I mean, do you think that maybe we should have a check onto how people upload stuff? Should we check on who comments where? Should they be asked to give some sort of identity that they cannot take up?
Firstly, most serious sites which value the site property itself have checks in place to ensure that the reviews which are being put on that site are actually genuine. They're from IPs which are valid. They're from the countries actually match the place where the person says they're from. These kind of checks are there in place because the site which has fake sites is no longer trusted by other people. So it's in their best interest to police their sites. That said, what you're pointing out is a very valid point. And we all know of agencies which have long lists of user IDs on different sites, which they just roll through and they put fake comments on behalf of their brand or against the brand's competitors. Now, this is something which is despicable. And when it comes out, it really ruins the brand's reputation. And I think in this case, we need to actually follow the US and Europe, where they have strong policies defined by the government, defined by industry bodies within these countries, which defines what people are allowed to say, what brands are allowed to put out, and under what guise. This particular example is called astroturfing, and it's frowned upon in the US and Europe. And India, in that sense, is still a bit of the Wild West, but I think we're getting there.
Every time I hear about social media from a panel of evangelists, I believe that the case for social media is being overstated time and again. It is, even if you take an example of an entertainment channel, hearing from women who go and post it, and the number of people who are online and who talk about it, one, there is a credibility crisis as well. Bal Thackeray already died on Twitter that night. I have those. Second, the day that Diwali night broke, the trending topic, the trending picture, which everybody was posting of the Diwali as seen from space, was actually population chart. So there is a credibility crisis as well, not just on Twitter, which is democratic, even on the websites that you mentioned for cars. The reviews that are being posted, so you come to a site and the user feedback that you get is also manipulated in a manner a lot of people come and post. So not only one, is it relevant because it only represents a very small section for a brand like Coke. And let me remove myself from Coke and talk about, is it relevant because it does not represent the entire section of society? And again, for entertainment, does it, for the television series that you're talking? And second, the credibility. Even today, if I can take a raise of hands here and ask them, what would they deem as more credible? A review in the newspaper/television or what they read online? The credibility crisis is there. And again, both of them put together actually overstates the case for social media in my view.
It's a bit of
okay, I think all the three of us are going to start at the same time. So give me a little bit of a chance because I'll have to vehemently disagree with you on that. And let me explain why. So on one end, I've got somebody who's saying that anonymity is something that we need to tackle. And my question to you largely is the big why, right? I don't see why we need to tackle anonymity at all. I think, how many of you know what's Facebook's mission? Anyone? Okay, the last person there. Could you tell me what's Facebook's mission? Yeah, wonderful. So allowing people to share and keeping the world more open and connected. This is broadly Facebook's mission. And I'd like to concentrate on just that one word, which is I think they've covered the connection part with about 1 billion users and the share part quite easily. I think the point is they're trying to make the world more open. And openness can come with only one thing, that's with authentic behavior, all right? Let me give you an example. How many of you have used TripAdvisor lately? And this is a hardcore review site, right? Do you see what happens now? You see that the top comments and reviews are friends or friends of friends. This is social behavior, right? And this is authentic. This is not fake. Like I stated before, there are two kinds of people that you would listen to. You would listen to influencers, and you would listen to your social circle. This is not going to change for time immemorial. It's not going to change 100 years from now. It's not going to change 300 years from now. This is what it is. Just that new media has allowed us to do this faster, quicker, and in a more qualitative/quantitative fashion. So you can literally go out and see what is it that your friend who stayed at a hotel in Singapore has to say about it. And now you're taking your decision based on that. But this has come in based on authenticity, right? And with a little bit of openness. The other thing is, I think I'm connected to one of the national creative directors who's now started a new company of his. This was when Facebook launched something known as the Open Graph, where any kind of action that you would do on a website would get posted on your newsfeed. You don't have to even take engagement action. The engagement action was that you read an article, and that got listed saying this is the article that you read. He was extremely shocked that somebody from his friend circle was checking out photographs of, okay, I forget her name. Who's the actress in Raz? Was it Raz? Yeah, Sunny Leon, correct. So he was totally shocked that he was checking out photographs of Sunny Leon on a Yahoo site where, you know, it's behind the scenes action of the movie. And I go like, what are you so shocked about? I mean, is the fact that you got to know it in the open? Is that what we are shocked about? I mean, when we started streaming the parliamentary affairs on a day-to-day basis about what happens in Lok Sabha, we were shocked in the beginning, right? About why is it that ministers are abusing each other and throwing mics at each other. But how many of us even go by now, you know, assuming that it's exceptional cases? I mean, now we just completely accepted it. That's the best part about being open, is the fact that the new status quo, which is social and reality, will be the new reality. And that's not going to change. Right? And that will only come from authentic behavior as opposed to anonymous behavior.
Just a couple of points on the credibility issue. So you made a point that it's not really representative. And that's actually not very true. It's not representative. It depends on what kind of brand you're talking about. And it depends on what kind of segment you're really addressing. So for example, if you're talking about penetration of internet in India, and if we look at the top 8 metros, we're talking about something like a 42% penetration in terms of internet usage. If you look at SECA within those cities, we're talking about a 72% penetration. So that's huge. If you're talking about basing insights based on what people are saying in social media, then in the example of the TV program, where they were actually using that as a basis of how to improve the show, we were basing it on a sample size of more than 50,000 posts. How many people do surveys of that size where you have 50,000 respondents participating in the survey? So credibility is something which is getting better and better. And I personally don't believe we suffer from a credibility issue today in terms of insights. Of course, we do need to curate it to make sure that we're actually disregarding stuff which is blatantly put in by brands. But I think we could still get some very, very serious insights which help the brand's actual business grow.
And just see this, there are going to be different people with different levels of truth and therefore different levels of credibility. I mean, that happens in media too. You do have an India TV which talks about extraterrestrials or something, right? And
not anymore.
Like
you haven't watched it in a while. Not anymore.
Anyway, but even you have tabloids, you have various things. People tend, it's the wisdom of crowds, man. Look at Wikipedia. It's not necessarily about curated and research content. That also works. But good content tends to rise to the surface, right? So even if there are people who are faking it, there are people who have an agenda, finally the power of numbers kind of overcomes it. And good stuff tends to rise to the top. As Preetham was saying, and they have algorithms which is making it more and more relevant. So that the stuff which is more authentic and more credible comes to the top, you know. So by pinpointing the negative stuff, yeah, that happens. I mean, people are smart, people may get conned, but overall it's good. It's like Wikipedia, right? There could be fake stuff in Wikipedia, but overall it's useful.
So I think we've got 7 minutes, but I think the point you're making, we shouldn't make the exception the rule also. I mean, that's with life in general. Otherwise, we won't trust anyone. You know, but I think that in 2-3 things which have been coming out in the last few minutes is that we're testing the limits. We're testing the limits of a democracy. We're testing the limits of what is my space and your space. And perhaps also we're looking at this whole aspect of intrusion, freedom of speech, what gets out there, the public and private lines are blurring in many ways. It brings us back, brings us to something on freedom of speech and this whole aspect, because clients don't like abusive things. No one likes abusive things, generally. I think governments have this whole... There was an interesting point that you'd made when we were having coffee, when I was having coffee and you were having water, at that time, that you were talking about the document that the government already has in place, which was a 40-plus page thing, which you thought was a good policy in place. And when we were discussing surveillance. Now, all of these matters are in many ways connected, what we've just been talking about. What's it about? What is it that you think, so that we can overcome this fear of social media? What is it that, I'd like to start with you really, because you were talking about that.
So I think this was a research that I was doing about 2 months back. I just bumped into an article that DEITY, you must check out the DEITY site. This is DEITY.gov.in. Is the Department of Electronics and Telecommunication in India. Now, it's interesting that the department itself, which I think till some time back a very famous politician headed it, has actually developed and created a framework and guideline for social media for government agencies and organizations, which is the 40-plus document. Now, there are two things that I discovered with this, is that I was shocked that we were extremely proactive at that bureaucratic level. I think it was great thinking, and I've gone through the document, it's beautiful. Point number two is that I'm surprised brands don't have a framework and guidelines of this sort for their participation on the social field. These two things just literally hit me bad, because here's a government organization which is, either sending out the right information or the wrong information, trying to curb down social media, whereas their guidelines and their framework is absolutely clean on how it has to be done. And let me just highlight a few points from that. Is the fact that I think they've automatically said that participation is key, and the fact that you need to first listen and figure out what is the context of the person who's actually having a conversation. This is extremely important. What is the angle that the person is coming from? Is he a troll? Is it genuine? Most of us can't even differentiate between the two, right? And this is cleanly outlined. You can you could probably just go to my Facebook profile page and it's right there. You could download it and then go through it. What's important to understand that once you have a framework and guideline which has co-participation, that means people who are agencies who have their say, as well as allowing for say from users, then I think we have a start. Now, when it comes to pushing the boundaries, I think we haven't even started to push the boundaries at all. I think we're just extremely nascent, extremely young in a medium which is not even 6 years old. Let's just face it. Television, print are way more progressive. We understand there are rules, there are stuff that we've all agreed upon. And social media is just 6 years in mainstream. We will continue to evolve, and we may get to a boundary maybe in 6 years, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20 years, but it will happen and all of us will be on board. And that's when I think a more meaningful dialogue will happen. Until then, I think the cauldron will be warm and it'll continue to be chaotic, but I guess something will surface out which is extremely good and we're all happy with.
I just want to say, the day the Northeast issue happened, I was on 2 leading channels talking about it, and I said 2 things which I'd like to say in the context of censorship, in the context of rules. I think first, the government of India, in whatever it did, was right, in my view. There is a learning curve for the government of India, for the bureaucrats. I think in the last 1 month, they've crunched it. They've reached, in next 6 months, 12 months, the bureaucracy in general, the government of the country will know how to use social media to be able to use it in a manner that actually curbs the negative behavior. Second is, curbing social media doesn't work. It won't work in 6 years, it won't. It's like the 10th head of Ravan. If you really kill one head of Ravan or, bust it, the other heads will come up. Third, really, the government knows, and we do talk to people in the government, I am shareholder in a magazine called Governance Now, is that, government knows putting curbs on social media will only result in more noises. It will only amplify noises. They know it will be akin to doing a digital emergency. Like in 1975, we had the emergency in the real form, and it resulted in the government of the day not coming back to power. I think the people at the helm of affairs understand that if they do something which will curb the freedom of this democratic country, it will have a bigger backlash. So I don't think censorship will happen in India, you can be rest assured. And wherever checks and balances need to be put into place, safeguards need, the government of India is doing it very fast, and as he said, in a very organized, thought-through manner.
So I'm glad to hear you say that that's what we can expect, but the signals that have been coming out from the government have been quite contrary to this. We have had a certain minister who's allegedly called Facebook and Google the employees in India, called them to his office and said, you know what, look at the stuff that's being said about our leader. And he's gone on to say that we want to get a preview of all content that is going to be put up on Facebook and on Google. The government wants to be able to preview that before it actually goes public.
He did retract that later.
Yes, he did retract it, but it just shows you that the level of understanding about this social media beast, where people actually believe it's something that can be controlled.
And you have the absolutely terrible IT Act. That 66A scares me, okay, every time I write a tweet. Because, even annoying tweets are, punishable. It's a cognizable offense and stuff like that. And that's not, I don't think that's specific to Facebook or social media. They just make rules for that. I think as a country we have a problem, right? Whenever our sentiments get hurt, we can go and burn a few buses, and it's the person who hurt our sentiments who gets punished. It's just that thinking which goes on to social media also, in the way the governments behave. I think fundamentally we don't believe in freedom of speech. For us, we're only free to say things which doesn't hurt anybody else, so it kind of defeats the whole purpose. So I think till we change it at a very cultural level, right, it's just going to reflect in the internet laws, it'll reflect in blasphemy laws, in sedition laws, in defamation laws. It's the same thing.